everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm Laura, and if you're looking for inspiration to make some super fun and whimsical wire crafts, you have come to the right place. I hope to inspire you to use your imagination and add your own special touches to the projects that I share with you here. Now don't forget to give me the thumbs up, comment, let me know what you think, and of course please subscribe. Clicking that notification bell is important too. That way you know when I have new content to share with you. Now remember, many of my designs are original to me, so don't forget to give me a shout out if you share your projects or my own to other places such as your social media. Alright, so let's get started as I show you how to make one of these super cute, very easy to whip up hangers, and these are really great for keys or for dog leashes. Alright, let's go. So the materials we need to make one of these super cute little heart hangers is my usual rebar wire, my utility wire. This is the jig that I use for many projects already. I have a little crystal, faceted crystal. It's really quite nice. And then a couple of bead caps here, an array of pliers, good old-fashioned knitting needle, and you can actually use anything that's long and cylindrical like this, so pencil, crochet hook, anything along that line. So, and then our ruler, and then some paper towel to wipe off this very dirty wire. To start, we're going to open up a length of our rebar wire here, and you don't have to use this. These look really lovely in colored aluminum as well, copper, so you're not limited by this. This is just inexpensive and readily available in most hardware stores everywhere, as a matter of fact, and I just like to use it. It's a good sturdy wire. So what we're going to do now that it's wiped off is just pull out a length. I'm going to say about 40 centimeters, I suppose. Fold that in half, and that's very likely to be too much, depending on the size of the heart that you make. So just play around. Like I said, this is extremely cheap wire, so wasting it really isn't a big deal. And sometimes that's just the way that it goes. Sometimes that's what you have to do to work out these projects. So we're leaving the bottom loop at about 7 centimeters, or about 2 3/4 inches, and there are variables, right? You go ahead and you make it whatever length you think is going to suit your purpose. So then we just take and we twist this up a little bit, and this just provides for strength. So when you're actually using it as a hanger, if there's something heavier that's on it, like a towel, I wouldn't use these for a coat unless you had them additional strands on here, which you could very easily fit into the design. But this is really great for things like keys or dog leashes or those kinds of things. Okay, so now we have our end twisted, and we're just going to separate our wires like so, and then bottom up against the bottom of our jig here. And you can freehand this too, guys. You don't need to have a jig. It just makes for short, quick work having something like this kicking around. So I just wrap it around like so. And give those wires a bit of a tug. That helps keep their shape. Get that out of here. And then we're going to just loosely tug on it. Try and smooth it out so it's relatively bump free. All right, and then these are exceptionally long, so we're going to just snip them off. These will likely be trimmed again down the road. And you notice that I was hanging out to the wire as I was cutting it, and in my classes that is a standing rule that if you're cutting wire you have to hold on to the end so that it doesn't end up flying all over the place. It can cause injury, but it's just a pain to clean up too. So all right, so we have this part of it, and as you can see, this is where we're going with that. So we're just going to set that off to the side for the moment, and then we're going to introduce our utility wire, and this tends to be quite a bit dirtier than what the other stuff does, and like seriously filthy sometimes. So once again, there's no hard and fast rules as far as the lengths for this part, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making this little bit of a swirl, lacy kind of loops for the outside of our. I'm going to end up losing these beads. I got to put them up out of the way. So for the trim on our hanger on our heart, so we quite simply just take our wire. You want to leave a little bit of a tail, and that's what we'll use to be fastening our heart together. And then you just start to wind like so. And the variable with this as well is how big you have made your heart on your hanger, and also whatever implement that it is that you're using to actually wrap the wire around. So if you go smaller, your loops are going to be smaller, and it's going to take a little bit more to get around the outside. But if you use a larger implement, once again, you'll cover more space and your loops will be larger, obviously, right? Okay. So then we just start to flatten those curls that we did there. I'm going to do this slowly. This can be a little time consuming. Okay, so like so. And then you just play with them so that you can, your loops are somewhat consistent. And like most of my designs, they're very loose designs. I'm not a perfectionist with a lot of this stuff, and that's why, you know, I state fairly regularly that I'm not a jewelry maker. A lot of the processes with jewelry frustrate me because they are so exacting, and I just like to do a bit looser designs, a little more rustic, I suppose. Okay, so we've got that much, and as you can see, all that wire, it really doesn't go very far when you've actually start to make these loops. Once you actually start to wind them, flatten them up. So we'll just do some more there. Flatten that out. And this actually makes my fingers sore. It's interesting because there's not a lot of the wire work that actually fatigues my hands, but this definitely does. It affects my fingertips. And if you find that your hands get sore or stiffen up when you're working with especially these gauges of wire, just take a break, and the more you work with it, you're going to find the behavior is quite predictable, and it'll just become easier for you to work with. And that's the nature of practicing with any materials. right? So whether you're a crocheter or a knitter or a paper artist or a painter, we build on those skills, and once again we learn the behavior of whatever medium it is that you're working. Okay, so I did, that's 30, 40, about 50 centimeters of this coil. So now what I'm going to do is just go in and wrap this end around our two ends from wrapping our armature here. And that's just going to attach our coils to our heart. So snipping this off, a little bit of a tail there too, although this is going to be quite a bit longer than what the actual heart is, but it does give us lots of leeway. So you can see we're probably going to have probably about 6 or 7 centimeters left over. Better too much than not enough. So, sorry, I'm just thinking my way through this. So we bring in our utility wire again. And I'm going to actually, see, this is part of the challenge, working with these long pieces. Okay, I'm going to wipe it all off, and then I'm going to cut off a good length of this. I'm going to say, about an arm's length and a bit. And then again, I'm going to just wrap that at the same location where we started our, excuse me, we started our filigree. And then I'm going to start to wrap this around and tack our filigree in place. Now I don't go on every loop. I just go every second or third, whatever looks necessary, just to tack it in place. And some of these get a little bit smushed through this process, but it's quite easy to get them adjusted. And the idea is to try not to have an overlap. And you do see the wrap, it makes the frame kind of lacy, but you want to try and keep this part of it as flush as possible against the actual armature of the heart. And it just looks nice. That's all it is, really, is it's an aesthetic for it, right? And then, okay, so I've deemed that this is the front, so when we get to the hook here, I just tucked it back behind. See, you saw that, right? So I just took it, it was on the front like this, I just tucked it behind. Just makes it, this junction, nice and neat. And that actually worked out really well because those loops were a little bit smaller than the rest of them, a little bit less even, and so that worked out perfectly. Actually, it couldn't have worked out better. So it's kind of like the universe taking care of things there. All right, very nice. And I've been doing this kind of wire work for, well, it's about 5 years now. And I do work fairly quickly, and I guess it's like any artist with any medium. It becomes part of who they are, and they really don't have to put a lot of forethought into the application of their medium. And that's kind of the way the wire work has presented for me, and so don't fret if it takes you a little bit longer. And the beauty of YouTube is that you can start and stop as many times as you like to see how things are done. So be patient with yourself, but once you start to make stuff like this, I think you're going to be hooked. There's the versatility of my projects, is that you can, I didn't say, a lot of it is practical. Practical and pretty, whimsical and practical. That loop just doesn't want to. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and this is good for you guys to see too, right, is that it doesn't always go off without a hitch, even though I've made them before. Right, so that's, there we go, that's what I'm going to do. I just backed up the wires on both sides, and I'm just bringing this one, it finishes off this filigree. I'm going to chop it off. So I've got a couple of ends here, so we're going to chop that one off, press it flat, chop that one off, and the wire went flying. Oops. Alright, there's that, and then there, this is the one that we have wrapped all the way along. And this one we're not going to cut off immediately because we want something in here to hang our crystals from. But we do have a good length here, so let's just chop that off so that we're dealing with less ends here. Okay, so I'm going to bring this around like that. And these we're going to trim up a bit. And give them their curl. So just grabbing the end, just give it a curl. Like that. Very pretty. Right, and then we just take this long piece of wire, we give it a little bend, like that, and then we wrap it back around the center part. So it just gives us this little loop here. And this one's actually a little bit large. I would typically go just a little bit smaller, but that's okay. So now we put that off for good, once and for all. I'm pressing that down. Awesome, it's so pretty. Okay, very, very nice. they come together quite beautifully. All right, so we're going to take a piece of our scrap wire. Again, make it a little bit shorter, a little more manageable. And then we're just creating that little loop. My hand's pretty dirty, so not 100% sure you can see the wire against them. And even though I cleaned that wire, you see, this is still the result of that. So, all right, so we've got one little loop there. We're going to put on one of our bead caps like that. And we're going to pop our bead on there. Like so. And then the top. And it makes this really sweet kind of lantern look to it. And then we want to make our final loop on the top there. Snipping that off. And popping it in that little loop there. Yeah, and I'd have to say next time I would make this a little bit smaller, and actually we could probably squish it together a little bit more too. A little less pronounced. Very pretty. All right. Okay, so now the next thing is just to bend up our hook. And you could leave it like that, or you could give it a little bit of a bend on the end like that. Very, very pretty. Thanks so much for popping by and joining me to make these really great little hangers. They're awesome for keys or for dog leashes and those sorts of things. So I really appreciate you being here. And don't forget to subscribe, comment, give me that thumbs up, and definitely click that notification bell so you know when I have new content to share with you guys. So for now, thanks again, and I hope you have a fantastic day. I'll talk to you soon.